Okay, today it's going to be fun. Q&A day.
Q&A.
And in the spirit of Q&A, I wore sweatpants just to be like more laid back and relaxed.
We're so authentic.
This is the Balanced Family Podcast with Ben.
And Jessica, there's a lot to balance when you have a family. Marriage, kids, health, career, while you're trying to balance all the opinions out there on how to do things right.
Today, we'll cut through the noise, tackle hard questions, and share stories as we try to get to the heart of the things that really matter. Okay, before we get started on the Q&A, and Jessica's going to lead this today, I do want to ask for you to do us a favor if you're listening and watching this. I know it's hard to appreciate content sometimes because there's just so much content on the internet, but it is a lot of work putting together a podcast. And I'm learning that firsthand. This is the first podcast I've ever produced. So if you're finding any value from this podcast whatsoever, you could leave us a review. We have a Buy Me a Coffee link you could support us with. We would really appreciate that. If you're not finding any value, then you should just stop listening to it.
Why are you here?
Why are you here? So anyway, it really does help. And if you follow us on socials, commenting, liking, all that stuff really helps. So we believe in value for value. We would really appreciate your support in that way.
For sure. Thank you so much for your support. And we're going to get right into the Q&A. So I took some questions on Instagram and just kind of picked out a bunch that we're going to kind of roll through. And all of these are personal Q&A. So, usually on Balanced Birth Couple, I'm answering birth questions, but this Q&A is actually going to be more about Ben and I, about parenting, about marriage, about us personally. So the first question, what has been your favorite age to parent? I can answer this one first.
Yeah, you go first.
Right now.
I was going to say the same thing.
Oh my gosh. And if you have followed me on Balanced Birth Couple for any amount of time, I've mentioned, at least in the past, that babies and toddlers, they just aren't my favorite age to parent. Ben and I both taught middle school and high school. And so we're starting to get into the school age and preteen years. And I feel like I am finally in my zone. I'm like, yes, I understand kids this age. I know how to handle them. I'm just not as good with the constant screaming and crying and bewilderment that I feel when I don't know what they want or need. That just was so stressful for me. And so I know there's a lot of people who just love the newborn stage and love being, one of my best friends, she's like, I love toddlers. I love newborns. I'm definitely not like that. What about you?
Oh, I love the school age. I call this school age, 5 to 12.
Yeah, because our youngest is 6.
Yeah.
Our oldest
it is my
11.
favorite age already because, most men are not into babies, honestly, naturally. And right now they're still, they're very impressionable. There's a lot more innocence and there's so much curiosity. So it's you have that exciting, super curious, just wanting to learn and absorb so much about the world. Their parents still are cool to them.
Yeah. Although I don't know, our oldest is definitely
our oldest
starting
11 and she's starting to turn that corner into middle school. And middle school has always been my least favorite age.
Middle school is probably my favorite.
Which is is amazing. It's
I
gift.
know, I was told you're an anomaly and
yeah, absolutely. I actually already accepted. I'm probably not going to enjoy these next few years. And then get to high school and then
here's the thing about middle school. I can relate
more to high school.
Well, here's the thing about middle school is that middle school actually, I can tell she still deep down thinks that we're cool. She just won't admit it. But in high school, they actually genuinely do not think you're cool. But in middle school, they have that nice combo of they do still look up to you and they think you're cool, but you can start having a lot more sarcasm.
That's true.
A lot more in really deep intellectual conversations. They're starting their brain is starting to develop in a certain way where you can start talking about more abstract things, but they still are energized about life, unlike high schoolers who tend to be rather apathetic in general.
Yeah. Well, I will say, as I taught high school, even with you mentioned abstract thinking, there's a big shift even in the middle of high school. Usually the shift between 10th and 11th grade is usually pretty massive. And I always loved 11th graders and 12th graders because they're like about to be adults and they're like, a lot of them kind of like realized I need to get a plan for my life, and they're actually
stuff together.
They actually do start to listen.
That's true.
But like 9th and 10th grade high school,
9th and
like
10th
they're
grade's not
just
fun.
like not
Oh
interested
my
in
gosh.
adults whatsoever.
That's probably my least favorite, actually, to teach personally. I'm like, I could skip over.
Yeah,
and
but-
even 8th grade to an extent. Anyway,
back on
I
the-
digress.
But back on the school age thing, the memories that we're making right now,
Yeah.
and people not needing diapers, people that can speak English in fluid sentences is
Express
really
what they need and want.
It
is so great.
It's a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Next question. How often do you guys actually argue, and how do you handle spats when they happen around the kids? And I think, I feel like I could answer this question in two parts, because if I were to answer this as of like right now, like currently the day that we're recording, we really very rarely argue. It's a very rare occurrence. If I were to have answered this question 5 years ago, I would have been like all the time, daily. And so that's just the honest answer to that. Do you have any other thoughts about that?
Maybe more than 5 years ago that we were.
No,
I feel like
that would have been when Josie was 1. So
Oh yeah, well.
no,
yeah.
wait, that was
Man, time
COVID
flies.
time. Come on now.
feels like
Do you not
forever ago.
remember COVID?
Yeah, I would. COVID was hard.
so hard.
Well, and that's interesting you bring up COVID, because I feel like in a real practical sense of why we've been able to work through a lot of the marital stuff is starting a business together.
That's true.
And we started it during
We're
COVID.
forced.
And like, dude, that was so hard.
So hard.
And I mean, there were I remember multiple arguments where you were just like, I can't do this. Like this whole idea of
Not
running-
a marriage, business.
Of course, yeah.
Well, you to clarify.
Yeah. Well, I'll say like we never use the D word, divorce. That's like a non-option. Like we believe in covenant, that marriage is a covenant. It's not just between two people, it's between us and God. And it's like breaking that covenant is breaking that covenant with God. And so that was never a consideration, but starting a business together and wanting to quit doing that was definitely brought up, mainly by you. And
Yeah, dude. I was like, I could just do this myself. Thank you.
yeah. But the benefit of that is that you and I worked through so much, having to literally work together 24/7. And it brought up so many insecurities, so many like just this like issues of incompatible viewpoints on things that we had to then like break and like restructure together as a couple, and just view even just how we function together differently. And that honestly was a huge blessing. But I would just say, more importantly though, is that from the beginning of our marriage, we've always been committed to dealing with issues.
Yeah.
Not sweeping stuff under the rug.
No, we don't let things fester.
Right. And so that's why if you listen to episode 2 and you hear about us, how our marriage started out, it's just like, that was actually a benefit that we fought a lot because we just dealt with stuff.
Yeah, we never really were the couple that would just keep kicking the can down the road. We were very passionate about like, we need to deal with this. And so I think when you have kids, that gets more difficult. And that's what I meant was even beyond the business though, like when we started having more kids, you just don't have as much time to argue. So to the question about what we do when we handle spats and kind of what we're talking about right now, when we actually argue in front of the kids, I think showing our kids the repair process is probably one of the most important things you can do as a parent for your kids.
Yeah.
To show them a model of good marriage. Because a lot of parents, I think they're afraid to argue in front of their kids because they don't want to scare their kids, or they don't want, the kids to feel unstable about mommy and daddy. But I think that sets up kids with a unrealistic expectation about marriage, where they then maybe believe, oh, well, a good marriage means you never argue.
Yeah.
And I think that actually the most important thing you can do is argue in front of your kids and then repair in front of them.
Well,
have them hear you apologize. Have them maybe not, the full argument, the full conversation, but for them to not, how like you could, I remember just in general, you can feel when people are angry at each other in the room, even if they're not talking, there's like that tension. And I think for kids, like living in that could be really difficult. And so actually getting to see, oh, mommy and daddy were really mad earlier tonight, and now they're like, everything is back to normal. Oh, okay. Like, interesting. They must be, this is safe for me.
They love each other.
They love each other.
Well,
Yeah.
And I want to clarify something. I would say it's extremely rare, like could maybe count on one hand the number of times our kids have seen us like legitimately fight.
Oh yeah.
Like, like
for sure.
we do not have I can't even remember the last time we like yelled at each other. I mean, honestly, but like we certainly had self-control to like, we knew when to stop things when it was about to get ugly, and we would either go to another room or we paused, which is honestly a great tool that we've learned in our marriage. Anyway, if you just like take a pause and take a deep breath and you revisit something a little bit later when you're not emotional, you can talk through stuff a lot more effectively. Like our kids have like hardly ever seen us raise our voices at each other.
I guess what I mean is more just that kind of irritable,
Yeah.
like back and forth.
Exactly. Well, that's what I was going to say, is that we do have little spats, and like this person has like a spat, like, yeah, but we handle it like gracefully with each other. And there's been times we get a little annoyed, but then they see us work through that, apologize to each other, and like come to a conclusion. But I do laugh at this because it reminds me of that one time that we had a little argument in the car or something like that with our kids. That's the time you can't. It's hard.
yeah,
Like,
oh my
who
gosh.
can have self-control?
Vacations,
like, stop. It's
road trips.
Yeah, vacations, dude. Yeah. I guess we probably have some heated discussions
For
on
sure.
vacation. But anyway, I remember getting in an argument, and we finally came to a resolution. I said something to like try to clear the air and stop the awkwardness. I was like, girls, I know that was uncomfortable, and you probably didn't like hearing that. And Millie goes, yeah, oh my gosh, it's so annoying.
I forgot about that.
But you were right on point. And you're like, well, Millie, that's like us listening to you sisters argue all day. It's really annoying.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
That was so funny.
Yeah,
It was actually a great learning point for them to be like,
it's like,
oh, welcome to our world.
yeah, because they argue a lot.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Let's move forward. Were you both Christians when you met, or did you get saved later or during marriage? We were both Christians when we met.
Yeah. I got serious about my faith when I was a teenager.
Yeah, and I was pretty serious, and then got really serious about my faith actually around the time that I met Ben.
Yeah, we actually met at church.
We met at church
during college.
Yeah, and you saw me from a distance. We went to the same college.
It actually is really romantic that like years before we ever met, I had seen her on campus one time, and I thought, that is a beautiful girl, and I like her style, and I want to get to know her. But I didn't.
I was dating someone else.
I didn't approach you or anything. But I remember thinking like, I like her. I've never even.
And then you said that when I showed up at, because you were going to the church that I showed up at.
Yeah, and then when I saw
walked
you, it was
in the
just like,
door.
oh my gosh, that's that girl like 2 years ago that I thought looked so cool, and I wanted to get to know. And what was just cool is like all those things were superficial about style and just like personality. But like the more I got to know you, it was like that stuff was meaningless. Like I just instantly.
We had an instant
connection and on so many levels, and it was awesome.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yep. Okay. Things to talk about to get husband and I on the same page with birth and expectations. So I'm assuming this is specific to birth, maybe also postpartum. I think one thing is to get on the same page. The easiest way to do that is to actually take a birth class together. Like, I think it's difficult to know really what to talk through when you're a first-time parent and you're like doing this for the first time. You need someone to kind of be able to like walk you through like, hey, these are your options during birth. These are the things that you need to consider, the decisions you'll need to make. And like, I know like in our birth class, we actually have turn-in talks. So we have questions that couples then can talk through to say, okay, let's talk about whether or not you want to get an epidural, for example, or where you want to have your baby. Do you want to have a home birth, or do you want to do a hospital? We have kind of set markers throughout our class where couples then can talk about that. And then at the end, you make a birth wish list, which is our name for a birth plan, and you actually do that together. And we actually have not only a birth wish list, but we also have a birth plan for partners that takes you through kind of the options for how your husband can support you during birth. And, obviously it's not like you give that to the doctor, but it's more a way of you guys being able to plan together to be on that same page. I mean, honestly, like that's the easiest route. You could also, read books and have you each read books and then talk. But I mean, that just tends to be a lot of work.
I always tell women, like, you don't get bummed when men are kind of clueless for a while. They don't naturally believe that the baby is real till they see it. It's just like, it's just weird, And so it's very common for guys to be kind of checked out and not realize how important they are. And so it's not a shameless plug, go take our birth class. But honestly, that is the bedrock.
Like why we made the birth class was for this thing.
Like that is the bedrock of our
Yeah.
entire content creation is learn together, and then you feel confident. You both feel confident. But I also add that if your husband seems uninterested, it's important just to not make personal attack, but instead help connect his love for you with support during birth and support during postpartum. And the way you go about that is very simple. It's like, hey, I know that you love me. Mm-hmm. I would feel more loved if you took a birth class with me. I would feel more loved if we develop a postpartum plan together and we really think through some of this stuff, because right now it's just kind of overwhelming. And so those kind of conversations go a lot better than,
why aren't you interested?
Why do you not care?
Yeah.
Do you even want to be a dad? I mean, all those like personal attacks, like,
which are really common when you're hormonal. Okay.
Exactly.
That's,
Yeah. So that's my number one tip is say, hey, I would just feel so much better if we could get on the same page, and then you just go from there.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Next question. How did you decide on baby names? Were they family, ones you always wanted, etc.?
That's a good question.
It is a good question.
So unique for every couple.
Well, and we have very unique baby names, I will say.
Not crazy unique. Except one.
I think 2 out of the 3 are pretty unique.
Can we just, before we do that, make a comment about what's up with our generation?
And unique baby names?
And same with Gen Z. Like,
I know.
What the heck? Like, why? What is in us that makes us want to be so different than generations before us?
I have no idea. But now actually old-fashioned names are coming back.
That's true.
So that I would actually disagree with that statement with Gen Z who's now having babies. They're going back to like really old names, which I guess
like what? Like what?
Well, I would say our middle child's name is an old-fashioned name, and our third child, Camille, is our middle child's name. Josephine is our third.
Those are old
and
names.
Those are old names.
That's true.
So we actually were really trendy.
We are trendy.
So cool.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Everyone's so lucky to get to see.
We call our middle child Millie, though. Although now she's wanting to be called Camille. She's like, I would prefer to be called Camille.
Yeah, which is interesting.
How did we come up with Camille? Okay, so Journey is our first name.
Top. Yeah.
So Journey is our first name. You were the one that brought it up.
It's actually pretty crazy. I had like a dream one night.
Yeah, that's right.
That I had a child named Journey. Seriously, I had a dream, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was like, "That's what I'm going to name. I'm going to have a daughter, and I'm going to name her Journey." And it just hit me like, "Wow, that's really cool."
It's a cool name.
And it also, the word Journey was really big to us.
And by the
then.
way, we spell it like the word,
not
like
not
JOURNIE or whatever weird spellings.
But to us, like we were talking a lot in that phase of life about just like life is a long journey that meanders and has ups and downs. And if you see life as this long journey versus like this linear progression of things you got to accomplish to achieve quote unquote success, like you're more content with how your life flows. And so that name is really important to us. We thought we were super trendy, and now there's like a bunch of Journeys running around all over the place.
I will say too, I think it was cool to see how we named that child Journey, and parenting her has been quite the journey. It's definitely, she was our first kid. And
it is.
So there's
nothing
a lot.
Like your first.
You got to learn a lot, and it has truly in every sense of the word been a journey.
She's a special girl.
But anyway, and then Camille, I can't remember where we
you don't remember?
No, oh my gosh.
How do you not remember?
I don't know.
I'm the one with the bad memory.
I know.
There was a show we watched called, I think it's called Parenthood.
Oh,
and the grandma in that show was named Camille, and she went by Millie.
Yes,
we thought that was the cutest thing ever. Just having that combo.
I forgot about that show too. Ooh, do I want to rewatch that show? They yelled a lot in that show. That was really annoying.
Yeah, it was very soap opera-y.
Yeah.
But also, I remember when we were in grad school together, we were in the same teaching program, and the administrative assistant, her name was Camille.
How do you remember this?
I
But
don't
then you don't
understand,
remember like conversations we've had like 3 hours ago.
I don't know.
What?
I don't know.
I can't even right
But
now.
she was elderly too. And so like literally the only Camilles I've ever known were elderly.
I have zero memory of that teaching assistant.
Really? Well, she wasn't a teaching. She was like the secretary, like the office, like the admin assistant.
Zero.
Wow.
That's so funny.
I know her last name. I'm not going to call her out because she's probably listening right now and
Definitely.
wants to keep things private.
And then our third child, I named her off of Joe from Little Women. I had postpartum or pregnancy insomnia. I was up in the middle of the night with her, couldn't sleep, watched the PBS multi-episode series of Little Women. Specifically, that one is the best, in my opinion. And I saw Joe in that show, and I just knew that the baby that was in my belly was going to be just like her. And I loved the name Josephine. And so we actually call her Josie, but I call her Joe.
Yeah. Jojo.
Jojo.
A lot of different
a lot of little
variations. That was probably the only child that we had disagreement because I was really wanting to name her Azalea. And I wanted her to go by
Another
Izzy.
very unique name.
I wanted to call her Azalea, and I wanted to call her like the full name, and then I wanted to call her Izzy. I don't know why. I just thought that was cool to have a mismatchy nickname. I don't know why, but
It's a type 4 Enneagram coming out in you.
it is. But we compromised, and that's her middle name.
Yeah.
Don't look up her social security number now that you have her full name.
Oh my gosh.
Like, jeez.
Identity theft. Okay.
I do thinking about names always makes me think of my buddy Josh, and I just want to troll him a bit because it's so funny. His kids have all good names and they roll well with their last name, which I won't share. But me and my buddy Jonathan always give Josh a hard time because he's so confident
And
about his
opinionated.
baby naming, and he would. Let me do an impression of Josh because he would say it like this. He would say, "My wife and I are excellent baby name pickers." He'll say that to like young
And I
couples.
think he named Jonathan.
Well, no.
His baby.
This is he tries to name other people's baby. Yeah, so here's Josh's amazing baby name skills. This is one of his children's name, David.
So unique, so interesting.
But
so
I always give him a hard time for that, but it's funny.
All right, next question. We took your class and loved it. Have a 4-month-old and first sleep regression. Any tips? Yes. I can have tips for you. Absolutely. First of all, that 4-month sleep regression is really hard for us. And we're actually coming soon. There will be a podcast coming out about sleep training and our views on baby sleep. So stay tuned for that in a few weeks. But for now, I typically think that if you are open to sleep training, which I want to caveat and say that when I say sleep training, I'm not saying close your door and let your baby cry it out all night. That's not what I'm saying when I say sleep training. There are actually a whole lot of options under the umbrella of sleep training, very gentle methods, etc. I think 4 months is a really good time to start building some sleep habits with your baby. That sleep regression tends to be just a great opportunity developmentally. I'm not saying like just letting them cry it out all night, but I do think that helping baby learn how to put themselves back to sleep independently, usually around that time period was when we started kind of implementing some strategies to help with that skill in particular. Yeah,
I would just say you're stepping into the period of baby raising where you have to be more intentional, and that there's the patterns and different habits that you help build in your home now set the stage for a while.
And and it's kind of like one of those things, like you can kick the can down the road if you want, but at some point, like, it's good to help your baby sleep
have a
through the night
strategy,
so you can also sleep. But if you have already implemented some things, so let's say you already have been working on developing a good sleep foundation, then which we did, then all you do through the sleep regressions is just continue on the same course.
Yeah.
And so you try to keep that consistency, and typically they will get over that hump, so to speak, within about a week. You know, it's not always long lived, and it's just a tiring week, unfortunately.
Not to add another shameless plug, but we do have a really good baby sleep class led by an
Yes.
expert baby sleep consultant. She's the most balanced, like personalized approach type of instructor you will find on the internet.
She's
Use
amazing.
code podcast to save 15% now.
Yeah. So check that out for sure. The link will be in the show notes. Okay. 3-year-old unkind behavior toward 8-month baby sibling, struggling to know how to handle it. Yes. I remember this stage very well as well.
Really? Did we have that?
Oh, are you kidding?
This goes back to my memory problems.
Dude. Well, you also didn't stay home with
true.
our babies
That's true.
and I will say, like, we didn't have as big of a gap, but so we actually had a closer gap between our first and our second. And so at 8 months, our first would have been 2. And yeah, there was a lot of unkind behavior. And I think the main thing is with that is that you have to have boundaries and enforce those boundaries. And so having a consequence of some kind when the 3-year-old has a unkind behavior where you say, no, we do not hit. And then you have a consequence of some kind, whatever that might be, removing them from the situation. I mean, there's a whole lot of different things. Natural consequences are always really good with that. Because you don't want, it is developmentally normal for toddlers to explore different body movements, like hitting. So it's not always connected to like your toddler hates your baby.
Right, yeah.
It's actually just more developmental, but you do actually, it's not as time to be like, oh, are you feeling emotional? Do you like? It's not a time to
Don't start psychoanalyze your-
It's literally
exactly.
just like, hey, no,
They're
we
a
do-
toddler.
We do not hit.
Yeah.
Consequence.
They're toddlers developmentally are stepping into a phase of life where they know what they want.
Yeah.
And they start to have the power to try to get what they want.
Right.
So you got to look at it from that lens. Developmentally, that's normal. And also, like, yeah, attention is divided. I do remember us helping, like, give identity to our older, like, you're a big sister. Like, that's a big deal. Like, you are part of the team.
There's responsibility. We don't use that word, but
Yeah, exactly. Like, on their level, you like, your different birth order it has a big impact on your life and how you perceive your role inside of the home. And this is the truth is, like, older kids, like, there's more on them. And I remember helping, however we did that for a young toddler, talk through some of that. But also just want to encourage that the parent that asked that like, it's just kind of like normal. It's when you have young littles together, like and we had this, I mean, when you have a lot of kids fast at a short amount of time, like, and they're young, like, they're just
it's
too
chaotic.
They're too immature to really deal with things. And I am so glad we had all our kids real fast because we got out of that stage quicker. But I do see families where the older siblings there's like a bigger gap and it's a lot smoother. I mean, honestly, because they're older and just kind of more mature.
Very true. Agreed. All right. Last question,
All right.
folks. How do you balance planning trips with or without kids? And I feel like that's a 2-part question.
Yeah. What do you think they're asking? Planning trips with or without kids?
I think like maybe actually like what trips do you try to take with your kids or without your kids? And I will say I would say every year we did a little something, just you and
Just
I.
and I. Yeah.
And we have grandparents. So I think that's the one caveat I will say is that we have very wonderful, loving, supportive grandparents that are very trusted, that we felt fine dropping even babies off with for a weekend. I'm not saying we like left for like a week when they were super little, but we would do like little, like mini things where we would go, a couple towns over, a couple hours away and, spend a night or 2 in a hotel, that kind of thing. And I would say that it wasn't like it was an intentional priority of ours where like every year we were like, we must have a vacation, just us two. But it definitely was something that we talked about every year. And if it was possible for us to do, we made it happen. But then, honestly, when the kids are young, like, I don't know, taking trips with really little kids, I don't really think it's worth it. I don't know. Now we will
still do it though.
We did it, but like they're not going to remember anything that you do.
Right.
And so really then it is, are you going to enjoy it?
Yeah.
Like, is this something that you want to do with your kids that you're going to have the least amount of enjoyment with?
Yeah.
And so if you're wanting to go to museums in a big city, like that is not a time for you to take your whole family.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's a great weekender with just you two. But, for us, like we took all of our kids to the beach.
We went camping,
We went camping a lot,
which we have another episode
which
coming
we'll
out
talk
all
about.
that.
And so I'm not saying that we never did trips with our little kids, but I am saying like we counted the cost and we knew like we asked ourselves, like, what are we building with this? Not, are they going to have just such great memories? It's like, no, they're not. They're not going to remember it. But are we building something with this trip inside of our home? A love for the outdoors, for example. It's like, yes, that was a priority for us. And so it made planning that trip with them worth it, because we knew we were building for the long term. Do you have anything else to add?
Well, I'll come back to the whole getting time alone as a couple in a second, but like traveling, sometimes though, I don't feel like we're trying to build anything. I just feel like we're trying to get out of the house. Because like when you have littles, you're just like so tired of being around the house just all the time. You just can't do as much in general. And so there were times it was worth suffering. Because I remember many conversations we had where it was like, would we rather just suffer in the house with these littles, or would we rather suffer somewhere cool?
When he says suffer, he doesn't mean like literally, but like, yeah, like
No,
you're gonna be changing diapers, disciplining your kids at the house, or you're gonna be changing diapers,
tantrums, and
disciplining your kids in a fun place.
And traveling with nap schedules, and all, I mean, it is hard. It is so hard. But I remember some trips where it was like we were glad we just got out of the house. But I always remember it was almost like this cycle. It was like you come home and you'd be like, "What? Why in the world did we do that?" That was I'm so tired.
We needed
so
a
miserable.
vacation from our vacation.
Yeah, and then you would a few months later you'd be like, let's do something else. And it's like we never learned our lesson. But I think the point is like life with littles is never easy. And I will encourage couples, like when your kids it kind of circles back to that first question, when they're at the school age, like this is like, it is so much fun.
Prime
traveling.
time.
But I will
fun.
say, there's always a different goal. Like even now when we plan trips with our kids, it's not just for us. It's about this family experience that we're going to build through this. If you really truly want to relax, do not take your kids.
It's type 1 or type 2 fun.
Yeah,
so type 1 fun is where it's like legitimately fun for the parents.
Yes.
You're like, I am having a blast. Yay.
Yeah.
Type 2 fun is like, this is fun.
Yeah.
Where you're having fun, but it's like family oriented fun, which is not the same as type 1 fun.
Yeah.
But it is fun, and you're building memories that you're going to look back on. And we have tons of memories from even when our kids were little that we look back on now with trips, and we laugh about things and we talk about how insane moments were, and it's good memories.
Mm-hmm.
But then what were you going to say something about couples taking trips together?
Yeah, that was another, I would even say, like, even though that would be in the type 1 category, I would say it's like type 1B, because even when you have littles and you got to travel, and if you're breastfeeding and you got to pump, I mean, it's just not the same. And I think it took us a while to finally accept that, like, we're in a different phase of life. And now that our oldest is 11 and you can already see her in just a short amount of time being gone, you realize how short parenthood really is, and that this is this finite period of time in your life to give to your building your family. And you're just not going to get to do all the cool stuff you want to do in the same way. Because even when you're alone, away from the kids, it's just still not the same.
And you still look at pictures of your kids. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
what?
yeah. When we go on vacation, like
We immediately miss our kids.
yeah, we'll talk and reflect
Yeah.
and look and laugh about our kids. I mean,
It's just funny how that works.
yeah, being a parent's beautiful and
Yeah.
it's great.
It's the greatest calling.
But I will say on a practical, if like people are wondering like how we balance, like usually we try to do a little something in the spring, outdoorsy, like camping
With kids.
a little something in the fall, outdoorsy with our kids.
We do a trip in the summer.
And then we try to do a trip in the summer with the kids. And then I would say we definitely at least do like a weekend together alone every year. And sometimes maybe a little longer. Maybe there's some spontaneous weekend getaways and stuff.
Anyway, yeah, it's good just to keep the fire alive between
That's right.
you two with trips, but also to make memories as a family, regardless of what stage of life you're in. So, all right, that was our Q&A.
Yeah, the next time you see a question box for Q&A,
If you have a question, a burning question you want to ask, you can ask us anything.
Yes.
So just let it rip. Yep. Ask whatever you want.
Have a great week.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening today. It would mean so much to us if you left a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you heard this.
And let us know your thoughts on today's episode by leaving a comment on Spotify or YouTube, where you can also watch these episodes.